Hey guys, today I'm in the greenhouse talking about water filters again. I'd previously made a water filter out of a terracotta pot, and I'll put a link to that video up at the top. But today's video is about a water filtration system that competes with the Berkey system, which is incredibly expensive. Those range, and I've looked online, they range anywhere from $350 up to over $500. So this is something you can put on your countertop and it looks nice in any type of kitchen, and I think you'd be proud to have it, and you can really be proud that you didn't spend that much money on a water filter. So I'm going to show you step by step. I'm going to show you some alternate options to the Berkey type of filter, and I'll even show you one that you could probably put together for less than $15. But the one we're doing is probably going to be slightly more expensive than that, but it works great. And I'm even going to do a food color testing to make sure it filters out anything from the water, and I'll give you some tips along the way as well. So guys, our first filter system is going to be made with a simple stock pot. These two stock pots came from Walmart. I believe they were $8 and change a piece, and they were quite a bit less expensive than some other stock pots like this one. I actually purchased this at a discount store as well, and this one will not work as well, or at least it's going to be a little bit harder to put together. The base of this one has a really thick base on it, and you're going to have to put a lot more elbow grease into it and effort to make this one work. But if you have a larger family, you may want to go with a larger stock pot. But one of the key components to this is having one that has a really thin metal base on it. That's going to work a lot better. You can go with something even smaller if you're an individual household, you live by yourself. You can use something like this. This is part of a 3-part set of stainless steel storage containers, and you could use something like this if you don't have a large need for purified water. So this would work great. You could use it to refill your gym containers on your way out, and it works really quick. But we're going to start with the two stock pots right here. I ordered these from Walmart a while back and had them delivered, and I've just been waiting to do this video. I wanted to do the first video about the ceramic or the terracotta pot filter first, and then I wanted to upgrade to something that looks a little bit more like a real water filter you'd get online that cost a heck of a lot less. Now I've got two types of filters that are going to make this system work, and this was a 2-piece set that came from Amazon and is a charcoal based filter. This is a ceramic type filter, and these are a little bit more expensive. I actually prefer these charcoal based filters because this is the standard in water purification today. So you can make either one of these work, and these average to be about $8 or $9 each. It was a set of 2, and this one was slightly more expensive. So I would go with the charcoal based filters like this. And there's another thing to consider when you're putting these together. If you have a large family, you may need multiple filters inside of this to speed up the water purification. So instead of just having one inside of your container, you may want to have 2, 3, or even 4. So I'm going to show you how to do this first on these this filter system right here that to me looks very similar to a Berkey, and I'll show you a few tricks on how to make the pot not sink so deep into the lower pot where you can maximize the amount of water that it's going to hold. Now, as I said, this is the Walmart brand. It's an 8-quart stock pot, and we're going to want to put 2 filters in here, so we just want to kind of space them out. On the inside of this, there's a little bit of a lip there, so we want to make sure that it's not off the edge of the lip, so they may need to be a little bit close together, but we should be able to do that no problem. One of the tricks through drilling through stainless steel like this is use a specialty drill bit, and I'll show you that as well, and I'll put a link down below. If you don't have this type of drill bit, you can get it really easy and quick to you from Amazon. Now, I'm a fanatic for cases and different things like this, and so this I thought was really neat. This little case, these drill bits came in. It was really not a bad price. I'll put that link as well, but I thought this was a really nice case. It's padded and has different types of step drill bits, and this is going to make it a lot easier to get through the stainless steel. And I'm going to probably use the smallest one right here because we don't want to go oversized on that, but it's probably very close to that right there. There is a gasket on the base of this going to help prevent any water leakage. So that's just one of those things that I love, getting stuff like this that has a really cool case with it. And I don't have to worry about putting this in a drawer and misplacing it because I can see the case relatively easy, and I know exactly what it is from the labeling on the outside. So if you're like me and you love things like this, it's really a nice case, and it just makes it easier to store your bits where you don't lose them, because I do have a lot of bits in different cases that are just totally, or they were from different packaging types where I didn't keep the case or the package they came in. And so something like this I'll probably keep forever, and I can store it, just put it on top of my workbench, and I'll know exactly what it is. Okay, so I'm going to start with putting my gloves on, make sure I don't cut my hand because this is going to have some sharp edges on it. But I just want to kind of come in just a little bit and just space it. I'm going to eyeball it and just put 2 two holes in here, so I have places for two different filters, and that way that will speed up the flow of water. If you only have a 1 or 2 person household, you might be able to get away with just one filter, but just remember that if you've got 3 or 4 people in your household, you probably want 2 filters in there, and maybe even 3, and maybe even use a larger stock pot. So I'm using this rotary tool set, and I purchased this at a discount during Prime Day, and I'm not sure if these are even available. It was such an incredible bargain, but I'll put a link if they are still available. So if you don't see a link to this in the description, you know they sold out of them. A lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of the sellers on Amazon, maybe 50% or more, are actually small businesses. So some people are thinking that Amazon is just one big company, but it's actually made up of many small sellers. So I'm just going to round this off, which doesn't have quite the sharp edges that it might have if I didn't do this. Now this is our water collection pot, and we're going to install a spigot on the side of this. But before we do, I wanted to say one thing about these 2 pots. When they nest like that, they go down a good 1 to 2 inches, and you can force it down even further. But if you want to have the maximum amount of water collection, take the lid of your bottom pot and flip it upside down where your handle is inside of the pot. Take your top pot where you're going to have your filter come through. Your filter has a long threaded piece there, so it's going to go through the base of this one and through the top of that one. But what we want to do is we want to mark it carefully, so we're going to set it right on the edge there. We don't have to worry about water coming out there because it's going down through this into our lower collection pot, so we don't have to worry about this. This is just basically there to help it sit up higher so it's not nesting down in the pot or it doesn't go any further. And you can also attach this with glue or something like that if you really want to, but it's really not necessary because the weight of the water is going to hold it in place. But if you had a lot of kids running around the kitchen, they might knock it over. You might secure it a little bit more than I am going to do, but that's not a concern for me. I'm going to take a marker and mark that and make sure that the marking is on each side of our handle. We don't want it to be any closer to the handle than that. We just want it on each side of the handle so that when we go to install it, it'll sit in there just right. So that way we maximize the amount of water we're collecting from our filtration pot into our collection pot. Okay, I want to make sure I have this right and make sure that's right near the edges. We're going to take our magic marker and just put it in there exactly where we line up there. We want to make sure the pot doesn't move, make sure I have it just right. And we're going to put our second mark on the up. I think a little bit of movement there. Again, this stainless steel is a little bit on the slippery side, so we just want to make sure we have it just right. Okay, come in on the opposite side, make our mark over there, and now we know to drill our 2 holes. I didn't quite get it deep enough in there. All right, now we know exactly where to drill into our pot lid so that the threaded piece of our charcoal filter can go through both the bottom of our top pot and our lid here, and so we make sure that we have enough going into there, and we're going to tighten this down to make sure there's no chance of leakage there. Now one of the tricks in drilling this, and you can remove some of the rough edge, the sharp edge there, is when you drill out one side, flip it over and then drill the opposite side so you can remove some of that sharp edges. So you're drilling from both sides on the lid. Again, we're going to come back with our Dremel tool accessory and do the same thing. I'm going to drill out the other side so we can get that right there. It takes a little bit of force and elbow grease to get this to go through, but just give it time. You'll see the shavings breaking free like that as you just give it some force. All right, you can see a lot of metal shavings here, so it did take a lot of elbow grease to get that in there properly, but we're going to come back with our Dremel tool accessory and grind off some of the rough edges and make it a little bit smoother and make sure that we don't have any sharp edges, even though this is going to be mostly covered with our filtration system. Now also another thing to remember is that you want to wash this in the sink. Make sure you clean it up because you don't want any of these small fragments ending up in your final glass of water. Okay, so we've got our top done. We're going to do our bottom, and we want to put our spigot close to the bottom of this, and it doesn't have to be completely at the bottom, because if it does, you might damage your base of your pot. So just come up about 1/2 inch and put that in there, and we're going to do it like that, so that way we don't have to worry about the handles being bent. We're just going to set it like that and drill into our water basin that we're going to catch all of our nice filtered water with. Now, another reason I really like this drill bit set is you don't have to guess. If you've guessed wrong at the size of step drill bits you need, you have multiple here. I'm actually had to come up a little bit larger size because the spigot I'm using has got a little bit larger threaded base on it. Now, another note on this particular spigot, this is just for an emergency. If I'm out of water supply for, let's say, 3 to 7 days, this would work great. But if you're using this over and over, I would go with something like, if you're in everyday use water filtration, I would go with a metal spigot. You can find those. I'll put a link to one in the description. But this, like I said, this entire system I'm making, because I have a dedicated water filter under my sink, but if something happened to the water system and it went down for whatever reason, if their electricity was out and they weren't able to pump water to my house, then this would be a great way to have filtered water for your family in an emergency situation. But like I say, you want to upgrade to maybe even larger pots and nice stainless steel spigot if you're going to make this an everyday use item. Now this hole right here is perfect size. I need to do a little bit of cleaning on it, get a little bit of the sharp edges off, but this particular one actually comes with 2 gaskets, one for the inside, one for the outside, and of course a washer that you can actually use a wrench to tighten it down if you want to get it super tight. But so that way you have a rubber washer on the outside, rubber washer on the inside, and you can prevent any leaks. So it makes an excellent way to get water out there without having to worry about a drip coming out of the base there. Again, if this is going to be an everyday use, I would upgrade to a stainless steel spigot, but this would be great for an emergency situation. Okay, we're going to install our spigot. We're going to put one of the rubber washers to the outside. Hope you can see that well on camera. Very tight fit, so you don't have to worry about any water getting through there. Super tight fit. We want to make sure it goes all the way to the base of our threaded plastic spigot there. I'm going to put that in first. Again, on the inside, take the second rubber washer and put it on the spigot to the inside. A little bit hard to see how to do this on camera, but we just slide it all the way down and make sure it's flush up against the inside of our pot, our collection pot here, and it's not quite to the bottom. I just want to make sure it's completely flush. Now, this is kind of a hexagon shape, so you can tighten it, not just by hand, but you can use a pliers or any kind of tool you have handy there. But we're just going to continue to tighten it there until it's really, really tight, so we know we have a watertight seal. Okay, that is so tight I can barely move it. Make sure it's perfectly horizontal there, perfectly vertical, and we got an easy flip up and down, tight seal on the inside, and so that is our water collection portion of our water filter. Now the same is true of these ceramic filters. You need to make sure that you drill the holes properly, make sure your washer's on there to prevent any leaking, the rubber washer. And also when you put these in there, if you don't have them spaced, the holes that you drill spaced far enough apart, then you've kind of ruined the whole thing. So you want these a little bit closer to the edge because the diameter on these is quite a bit more than our charcoal filter. So just make sure that you've done that. Make sure that you measured properly and spaced them. If you decide you want to use 2 for speeded up water flow. These are a little bit slower on filtering the water than the carbon filter, so just remember, take that into account when you're drilling your holes. But I'm going to go again with the charcoal based filters. Okay, so I'm going to install this. Now these only came with this particular gasket, so unfortunately I had to come up with my own rubber gasket. These are food grade and they are perfectly safe. It was an additional 2 washers that I had with another plastic spigot. So I'm going to install both of these and then we'll go on to the next step. So again, I've installed both water filters, and depending on what brand you buy, these were rated for a certain number of gallons. So you need to read the package that it came in so you'll know about how many gallons. Sometimes it's 1,000, sometimes it's more, it could be up to 4,000 or 5,000 gallons. But anyways, we're going to put our lid on the bottom and move on to the next part of bringing in our water collection at the base. A little bit loose there, but it doesn't matter. Just kind of have to press it down just a little bit so it'll have a good fit. Again, that's one of those things that you want to make sure that you're drilling the right size holes. Now you can let your filtration system sit on the edge of the counter and do it like that, but I found this plant stand that I thought would look really nice, and it's really easy to assemble. It's got a wide base on it, so you don't have to worry about it falling off the edge of it. But we're just going to take this, and I believe this plant stand was under $9. It seemed like it was eight something on Amazon. So this kind of adds a little bit more height to it, and you can disperse your water a little bit easier without having to run to the edge of the counter like it's demonstrated here. I'm going to flip that over, and that will be a very nice, stable base for your water container. Next, we're going to try to demonstrate the filtration of red food coloring in our water. Now, there's a couple of things you need to do before you start using it. One, you want to test and make sure you don't have any leaks. So we're going to take a picture of water. We're going to hold our base up and look carefully for any leaks. If there are, then we may need to get a couple more washers, maybe thicker, that are more suited for this. But the two that I have on there came with the extra spigot that I had. I don't see any water dripping at all. And of course, I'll test that for 10 minutes to make sure I don't see even one drop. But that is how we're going to start, by letting that slowly percolate its way through. Now, another thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you clean the water filter. The ceramic or the carbon-based filter, the charcoal filters, put it up to your faucet and put some pressure on it and let water go through it. Wash out any dust or any particulates that were made in the manufacturing process on both, as I said, on charcoal or the ceramic filter. Do that a couple of times and make sure you get any dust or any particles that might be on, in, or around both types of filters, all three of the filters I have here. All right, I'm going to add a couple of drops of red food coloring. Maybe 3. We're going to kind of stir this up a little bit. I've got to find a chopstick or something like that. We're going to stir it, mix it carefully, and then we're going to add it to our filtration top portion and let it filter. It's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes to get about maybe a good sized glass so we can test it, make sure it removes all of the food coloring. Now, while I'm allowing this to continue to filter, what I wanted to say is about if you decide not to use the lid and you want to just set this one into that one, you may create a pressure situation where it's having a hard time filtering because it's very tightly sealed one on another. So you might want to drill a very small hole towards the top to allow any pressures that are in there to allow the filters to freely flow. It doesn't seem like it, but if you have this pot sitting inside of that pot, it can create kind of a pressure situation where it won't flow as freely. So just remember, if you're having that issue, you might drill just a very small hole right towards the top, right below where the base of this pot would be sitting inside of this pot, if you don't want to use the lid as I demonstrated earlier. The lid is not a perfect seal around there, so I don't have that problem with the lid sitting on top like this, so it's not an issue. But just remember, if you do have that issue and you don't seem to be getting a good flow of water, just drill a small hole to allow some of that air to escape as it filters water in there and pressure builds up. So this picture is a little bit frosted, so let's pour it into a glass jar and see if we can see any residue from the food coloring. And as far as I can tell, I don't see any food coloring in there. So a double filter like that seems to be working really good at getting food coloring out. Now I will suggest these two options. If you're not using tap water and you're filtering something like rainwater or possibly pond water or something like that, stream water, you want to make sure you use maybe 5 or 10 all cotton t-shirts to filter out any large debris. Then you want to boil the water for at least 2 to 3 minutes in a rolling boil before you attach it, because there can be a lot of toxic substances in stream water. If your rainwater came off of an area that's not clean, which most areas are not, especially roofs and things like that, you want to make sure that you filter it first through the 5 t-shirts made of only cotton. You don't want spandex or anything polyester that might have microplastics in it. And you want to make sure that the water is clean going into your top picture before you filter it to its final stage into your collection picture. Now, you're not limited just to stainless steel. You can go with food grade buckets. This particular bucket was purchased for I think $3 from a fast food place here in America called Firehouse Subs, and they donate that money to firemen and things like that. Also, you can go to bakeries and get food safe buckets. They often just throw these away by the dozen. You can go in there and the only thing you'll have to purchase is your spigot and your filters. So that's going to really cut down on the cost. You might be below $12 or $13, or maybe even lower if you can find one of these at a dollar or discount store. So basically the most important and the most expensive item that you're going to be putting into your filtration system when you're using food grade buckets will be just the filter. So that will really cut down. But you're not just limited to 1 or 2. In this one, I've actually drilled 4 holes there, so you could actually have 4 times the production of purified water in something like this setup, and this will hold quite a bit more than these smaller size stainless steel containers. So guys, whatever type of gravity filter you want to use, can be a lifesaver. I remember once back in the 80s, we had an ice storm come through our area, which is extremely rare, and it knocked out power for a solid week. My parents used a well to generate water at their home, and so it was very, very iffy there for about a week. Things were a little bit difficult. Luckily, we had the right amount of storage items that we didn't really go into a crisis situation. But regardless, having something like this in your pantry set aside, and like I said, these can be actually used every day. I think that looks okay on the kitchen counter, especially with a nice plant stand under it. But you could use the bucket, leave it in your pantry or under the cabinet, and if a crisis situation emerges and you don't have access to pure drinking water, something like this could really save the day. So guys, if you have a question about this video or any previous video, because I've got quite a few do-it-yourself garden, home, and those type of videos, leave a comment after you become a subscriber. I put those people to the front of the line. Anybody who's subscribed to me, I always make them a priority to answer any question as accurately as I can. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you learned something, please let me know in the comments. Have a great day.